Hey, welcome everyone to the Political Deep Dive After Hours. You have myself, Emily Hurtley from Illinois, and Dan the Man Fishman joining us from Maryland, Queen Mary's Land. Unfortunately, Tyler's not going to be able to join us. His flight got bumped up, so he is flying back from the Georgia convention this week. The International Man of Mystery within the Libertarian movement, International Sass Master of Mystery, actually.
Yes.
I got to ask about that funk that was playing when you brought us in, man. That is awesome.
So it's after hours. It's after hours, and I patterned this show
in the mood immediately.
Yeah. So I actually, it's funny where I got this song from. You and I are both hockey fans, and I got the NHL Center Ice package several years ago. And when a game's not playing, they just put up the schedule for the upcoming games, and they'd play like this just instrumental music, and it was a kind of a rotation of songs. And it was this song that I heard, and I was like, this has got a good groove to it. So, and my wife and I just love the song. So I went out and actively sought this song out. And it's called "My Best Man," I believe, by an artist named Chris Jones. I've been trying to find him so I can, pay.
He'll find you now.
Because I wouldn't mind, royalty on this song, because I've done that for my, the other music for this podcast.
Yeah,
so, Chris Jones. Find me. I'm happy to take care of you. But apparently, this song was also in the if you got the DVD, one of the DVDs of The Big Lebowski. It was the
it's an older song then.
It's the screen, like the intro screen on DVDs where it has like the outtakes and all that stuff. Yeah. Ancient DVD technology.
Can we agree though that the Dallas Stars theme song is the best of all the NHL theme songs?
The one where they just yelling Dallas Stars.
Yes, written by Pantera.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Although I do also like their winning celebration song, which is Stevie Ray Vaughan's "House Is Rockin'." So
yeah, also very good.
They got good music in Dallas. So.
Yep. I got to agree. All right. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to throw the show off the path.
Dude,
it's funny because we teased him. Yeah, and we teased him several weeks ago that it's straight up porn music.
But it was found through hockey. That's the thing.
Do you know who Ry Cooder is?
Mike Cooter?
Ry Cooder. So Ry Cooder is R-I-Y.
Well, yes, I do.
You might. I mean, he's a relatively famous blues musician. However, he scored several porn movies. But, nice. I mean, he is in the annals of blues music, he's big. He's not,
Annals, not anals.
Exactly. Because you don't want to be big there.
I couldn't let that one go, man.
Yep.
As a musician, I feel I've failed in my calling. I have not scored a single porn yet.
Yet being the operative word, exactly. But yeah, so here it's funny because people didn't know about it for a while, and then after he died, there was like this resurgence in his music, and then some people said, "Hey, this is music that sounds a lot like," and they go to the credits, and sure enough, for like $500, he wrote these songs that are just awesome.
It's funny because blues musicians don't make a lot of money here in the United States.
Correct.
They go to Europe to make their money. Like the blues is massive in Europe, and they, a lot of blues musicians either stay over in Europe and make their money, or they just do European tours and then come back and do local clubs here. But yeah, I mean, however a blues musician makes money, just do it, man.
Tina Turner.
Americans don't like cool music.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I was going to say, so I've been. When I listen to music, like one of the things I like to do is listen to an artist who has a huge back catalog and just like see how far I can go before I get to a song. And I used to have Google Music. Now I have YouTube Music, but they have the songs listed in popularity order. How far can I go down the popularity before I find a song that I don't list, that I don't know? And so Tina Turner is one of those artists with just an enormous back catalog. And I got into the Phil Spector years. She made that one album, and it's got the song River Deep, Mountain High.
Yeah.
And that wall of sound that's just amazing. And so then I'm like, what's Tina Turner up to? I haven't heard of her recently. She's living what you talked about. She is living in Europe. She married a German billionaire who's like 20 years younger than her. But I have to tell you, she looks like she's 40.
Oh,
Tina
yeah.
Turner looks unbelievable now.
Yeah.
And, that she did an interview with a German magazine that I had to use a Google translator for, but she's like, yeah, no, this guy's the love of my life. I had to find him while I was performing here in Europe, but we've been together ever since. And it's just this amazing thing, but it's exactly it. It was easier for her to find, happiness and success with her stardom, et cetera, even though obviously she's a mega star in Europe.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
One of my very favorite musicians, completely underrated or rated for, I think, kind of the wrong reasons. Well, maybe not wrong, but not the ones I would highlight. Tom Waits.
I love Tom Waits.
I think he is a masterful artist. Lyrics, the tone of his voice changes depending on what he wants to. Anyway, I'm going to wax poetic on him because I love him, but he has a song on his album Swordfish Trombones, like I'm big in Japan. It's I think it's that album, but he's big in Japan, but he's not so big over here.
He has two songs that I just love. One of them, if you come to one of our next libertarian karaoke events, I will occasionally do Old 55.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a fantastic song. But he has this other one called You Can Never Hold Back Spring. That is just like, I think you should play it right now, Dave. You know how to share. You want me to play it?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, I'll find it while we talk. But it's a really short song too. But it's just amazing. And Tom Waits is one of those guys. Never hold back. I know my keyboard is super loud. Sorry.
His first album is completely different from the rest of his music, and it's my personal favorite. Though I love them all. And there's this one song it's basically spoken poetry because I have a thing for beatniks. Give me those broody artists. But he talks about a waitress with Maxwell House eyes and marmalade thighs and scrambled yellow hair. Oh, I love that phrase.
Perfect. I agree. All right. Well, you're going to like this one because this is also Tom Waits poetry coming to everybody over the screen.
Kathleen Brennan is his wife, by the way, and she does a lot of his lyrics as well.
Awesome. And we can chat along to it.
You can never hold back spring. You can be sure I will never stop believing. The blushing rose, it will climb. Spring ahead or fall behind. Winter dreams the same dream every time. Baby, you can never hold back spring.
So it occurs to me, I want to stop it because I don't want you to not be able to show this on Facebook or YouTube and have it show up afterwards because it's copyrighted music. I think because of the way you have it on the screen and this is our reaction video, stuff like that, I think that would be okay. But
sure. Yeah.
Let's stop at 1 minute anyway. Everybody else can find it. Tom Waits, You Can Never Hold Back Spring.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
So while we're talking about Europe,
I went to Europe. Excellent country.
It really is not too much dealing with Europe, but did you guys watch the Royal Squatlings on TV with Oprah Winfrey?
I did not.
No,
I did not either. And here's the funny thing: they keep calling these guys the royal couple. they renounced their royalty. Stop calling them the royal couple.
Right. Although they didn't renounce their royalty. Okay. They're leaving, they're outside of the system and stuff like that. But, if there were something to happen, heaven forbid, Harry could take the throne. So it's not like Edward who abdicated or anything like that. Now, let me test and see just how much of a fan of reality television you guys are.
No.
Do you remember there was a reality dating show called I Want to Marry Harry, where they took Americans to England and brought in a Harry lookalike, and it was a dating show, and like they all believed that he was really Prince Harry.
Yikes!
That sounds like a Fox show. That sounds like a Fox show.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But Fox had that one where it was like the singing contest where everyone was awful, and they would just pick like the best of the singers that week and kick them off.
Right.
They got to the worst singer, and they were like building these people up like they're the best singer ever.
Oh, I am not into American pop culture.
That's a Fox show. I never actually watched that show, but people were telling me about it. I was like, that is just evil. Like somebody's going to get through this whole show, win it, and then they're going to reveal that this was not. It was kind of like when Fox did that show where the ladies thought that they were competing for the really rich guy, and it turns out that he was dead broke.
Right.
And revealed it at the very end.
Right. Ugh. Live a lie, you get a lie.
Yeah.
All right,
All right,
pop
Dan,
that
what
up.
are you
That's the cast from I Want to Marry Harry.
Oh wow. You know that.
I mean, they flew him in a helicopter, and they all lived in this castle the whole time. And I mean, it was pretty funny.
Wow. I can't believe that the Brits let them get away with that. Because
Well,
they're pretty.
Yeah, but it's an American show. What are they going to do?
Yeah. But yeah. So people were sharing this so much last week, the events of 1775 to 1783 all inclusive are the reason why I just don't give a fuck about this shit. And you can throw in 1813 or 1812 through 1815 in as well, that equation.
Yeah.
I confess, I'm an Anglophile, hardcore. I tried to move to Scotland in 2009. It's hard to do that unless you're very rich, and I am not. My 19th great grandfather was the last reigning Prince of Wales. The last independently reigning, I should say. So this was back in the 1300s.
English, right? Arthur, right? Not Arthur.
Ironically, my family is related to the Windsor family. Now it's like a long distant relation. There's a book that's out there that traces our lineage back to 1000 AD with the Windsor spelled Winsor instead of D. It would be a King Ralph type thing for me ever to get it, to be allowed into England. I think it would have to be. So as much as I denigrated,
I went to school. I am also an Anglophile. I went to school in England for a year. What the kids now today refer to as a gap year. I went, but of course, I graduated high school in 1985.
That's the year I was born.
All right. Well, that's good. That makes you closer to my age than a lot of the people that I work with now. So, so I did a year up in Cumbria, which is the county that's south of Scotland. It includes Carlisle as the big city. And I went to St. Bees, which is, if you go straight east from the Isle of Man, the first spot of England that you hit is St. Bees Head. And it was fantastic. And I do firmly believe that, someday if the gates of hell open and demons pour forth, it will be American and British Royal Marines who deploy in their path while the rest of us escape. There's no question about it. That special bond is special.
Yeah.
But most of the Brits don't care about the royal family either. I mean,
right.
They care about the royal family in the same way that we care about Paris Hilton or Caitlyn Jenner or any other, figure of a thing. But most of them would tell you that, it's ridiculous that they're still paying for them. And, it's only the most hardcore. Now, I will say I did watch The Crown and I thought that was very good.
Yes.
And there's something else. Oh, I can't remember the name of it now. And maybe it's called The Queen, the one with Sarah Silverman's ex-boyfriend, whose name is eluding me right now. Michael Sheen. Michael Sheen as the Labour Prime Minister. Anyway, where he coins the phrase right after Diana dies, the people's princess.
Oh, Tony Blair.
Tony Blair, right. And I thought that was very good too, sort of that idea about it, because that's what she was. I think that was the end for the Brits, really, with the royal family.
Sure.
And it wouldn't surprise me if, when Elizabeth is done, they're like, so long and thanks for all the fish.
Yeah. I mean, because it doesn't seem like Charles is all that keen on hopping up and taking
No.
Right. Because, I mean, there's certainly an opportunity for him to go out and do a lot of public appearances right now. But I will say, sort of, it is astonishing to me that when people say they have these situations of, I wasn't allowed to do what I wanted to do, I'm like, did they physically restrain you? I mean, I would have been fighting. I would have said, fuck you guys. I'm going out and I'm talking to the media right now in front of the palace unless you hold me down and physically restrain me.
Yeah. So, and they got out. They did get out. It wasn't like they had to flee under the cover of darkness and and escape the Gestapo and get across the border. I mean, they left on a private jet and got across.
Exactly right. It's not the Von Trapp family.
Yeah, I don't buy the whole we're oppressed. Like you're living in a posh mansion in California. You are not oppressed.
Did they really say that?
That's what they've been insinuating.
I mean, well, I mean, they're saying they were treated terribly while they were there.
Okay, but that's not oppression.
Right, and I don't think. I mean, I don't know. It's interesting. I saw Harry on James Corden, who I do love. James Corden show, really good. I love Carpool Karaoke, all that stuff. That was very good, and I think that was a better thing for him. He's probably going to have a career in American media. Somewhere.
All he has to do is say, I would like to host a TV show, and he will have offers from every major network, all the cable outlets. People want him to be on the air. Yeah. Well, one, he's got a British accent. For God's sakes, everyone.
And he's a ginger, right? No gingers on television right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I dated a guy from Manchester. Oh, that accent.
Well, the Mancunian accent is very different too.
Mm-hmm.
That's there's a name for the royal. There's a name for the royal accent. Forced pronunciation is the name for the royal accent, which is strange. But it's super posh and weird and stuff like that. Yeah. And nobody else talks quite like they do, except for in the movies.
Yes.
But that Mancunian accent, woo, that gets difficult. There's a woman who I think is the most beautiful pop star right now. Her name is Cheryl. She used to be called Cheryl Cole, but she's just Cheryl now. And she's from Manchester. And I will watch Graham Norton and stuff when she's on it. But boy, she's hard to understand.
Yes, but you've always had an ear for that tongue, right?
Yes.
That's one of my favorite Frasier lines ever was talking about she was talking about her accent and people have a problem with my tongue in their ear. They're like, I've never had a problem with you.
Very funny.
Oh God, I love that show. So this week I caught a ban.
A band?
Ban.
Oh, a ban, a Facebook ban. Yeah.
Yeah, I caught my Facebook ban for my.
How dare you share a joke meme?
Jesus Christ. I mean, like, I get it. You know, you don't want certain things on there that make people feel uncomfortable. But for God's sakes.
Yeah, no, I mean that's the thing about it that, I really
And then going back, like way back.
it's not even like
Yeah.
you're attacking somebody per se.
No.
So I mean, did somebody report it?
No, so so you've heard people on Facebook, because I've heard several people on Facebook say, "Man, I got this notification from Facebook that a post I made in 2013 is up for review." It's an algorithm, or I call them the algorithms.
Nice.
Uh,
Oh my God, it's a great name for a band.
absolutely, the algorithms would be a great
Yeah.
Joe and Rufty does one of those big
So,
bands.
Brett
That would be the name for that.
Brett Spiner should do it, and the band's name should be Data and the Algorithms.
Yes,
I'll be here all week.
exactly. But yeah, it's an algorithm that's going back, and it has certain images that have been flagged by other people, and so it'll go through Facebook and pull all these images, and you're reported. So one of the big ones is there's the Nazi image of all the people doing the Heil Hitler, and that one dude that's standing there like this.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
they're flagging it because it's got Nazi imagery in it. But it's a greater point about being an individual and standing out from the crowd.
Yeah.
But it is a flagged image, and it's causing people to get reviewed. My image caused people to get reviewed. And I was telling Dan earlier that I was quite surprised that the image that the Dahmer image that did it was this one for Thanksgiving, where back in Thanksgiving, people, the governors were telling people how many people they could have over and be fine and not. So there's an image of Jeffrey Dahmer, and it says, "Don't tell me how many people I can have for Thanksgiving." That's the meme. And I'm sorry, I love dark humor. I love dark humor. In fact, one of my favorite shirts is a picture of Stalin. It says, "Dark humor is like food; not everyone gets it."
Yeah.
The one meme that I thought was going to get me on Jeffrey Dahmer was a picture of Jeffrey Dahmer sitting on his toilet, and with a caption saying, "Jeffrey Dahmer dumping his last boyfriend." I thought that was the one that was going to get me with Jeffrey Dahmer. And in response to that banning, I posted that image again because fuck Facebook.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that, because now we mentioned the Von Trapp family, and I have to show my favorite Von Trapp family joke, which is sort of like that, because it's Seth MacFarlane at the Oscars and, doing his thing. Let me pull it up here. I'm sure this won't get you banned.
I hope not. Wow.
Just a classic.
Side note, Christopher Plummer actually hated doing that role. He thought it was trite fluff garbage. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
Anyway.
Holly, yes, this is me explaining why I'm not on Facebook, or this is not being broadcast over the normal Facebook page, because for the next 30 days I cannot go live with Facebook, because here's the problem: is I accepted their ruling on that image because it was Thanksgiving. I thought no one's going to miss this image off of my timeline a year from now, or they're going to go back over my timeline and go, God, where's this Dahmer image? It was a throwaway image. I post shit all the time. I post it for 90% of the shit I post is for my humor alone. Like, if nobody reacts to it, I don't care. I laugh my ass off to it. So that's why I posted it. So I was like, yeah, go ahead and just take it off. There was nothing said in the little blurb that says, you can agree with our decision or disagree with our decision and appeal it. Nothing said, if you accept our decision, we're going to prevent you from going there. There were other ramifications. It was just that they were going to pull the image from Facebook. If it had said, hey, we're going to ban you from going live for 30 days or ban you from advertising for 30 days, I would have been like, oh, okay, well, I'll fight this.
But so that means you didn't see the other part where it says they're entitled to your firstborn child.
Oh, shit. Well, I guess I got to masturbate then.
That's how Facebook rolls.
Why was that your conclusion?
Yeah, I didn't really follow that part, but that's okay.
I mean, I'm all for masturbation. Don't get me
Well,
wrong.
because there's no way I'm having children. So, I mean, if you,
Okay.
you're not going to have,
So
that's as close as you're going to get.
since we're talking about dark humor, at one point in time, we had our cat was sick and she had renal failure, as 2/3 of all cats do eventually. And we talked about the options, and one of them was dialysis, which just would suck for a cat, right? I mean, cats
Sure.
hate everything. Another one was a kidney transplant. I'm like, tell me more about that. They're like, well, you have to provide the cat. I'm like, oh no. I'm not doing that. Exactly.
No.
You essentially have to adopt a cat that's going to be put to death so that then you can have its kidney. I'm like, I'm not doing that either.
What vet would do that, though?
I don't know. It's very strange. I mean, it's money, it's the market, but yes. Yeah, and it was
It's unethical.
$15,000 to do it as well.
That sounds like how they made fun of that old Rothschild dude that he would like buy Mexican people to take their hearts from him.
Right.
Because he would have a heart transplant like every 5 years, from the time he was like 90 until he died at 105.
There's a guy named Ray Ozzie who, if you're old enough to remember Lotus Notes, Lotus 1, 2, 3, it's a wiener dog.
He's doing something funky. I'm sorry. What are you doing?
I think that was his reaction to the whole donating a kidney thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Don't worry, Papa. We're against that shit too.
Ray Ozzie believes in, and so I mean, he's a famous computer scientist. Like I said, he started the company Lotus. He believes in what he calls the singularity, the point in time at which you will be able to transfer your consciousness into a computer, and that will be you. And he's like, it's 50 years away, and I'm 70. And he's like, so I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that I live till then. And so he has spent, his vast fortune. So I'm going to do everything I can to he's spent his vast fortune to make sure that he is as healthy as he possibly can be, is going to live as long as possible. 120 is not inconceivable. It has been done. And so, he is just spending millions of dollars, MRIs, body scans, all that stuff, so that he can live as long as possible. And there's a really interesting thing about this idea of extended longevity. And it's interesting because, we really don't know. Well, I'm older than you guys, but, you guys have no idea what your 80s are going to be like, what healthcare is going to be like then. When you think about where we were 50 years ago, what was healthcare like then? Then you think about everything could be done. Everything could be solved. There's a lot of people who think that we are very close to the end of pain and suffering from cancer. We fixed that. We're really, really far along in organ transplants. There's this amazing footage you can find where they take an organ and they essentially wash it so that all that's left is the lattice. So there's not any flesh on it anymore. But then they can spray it with your T cells, and whatever it was, like a heart or a kidney or a liver, it will then become your heart, your liver, your kidney, and they can transplant it into your body, and there's no rejection because it's yours. Now, what's really amazing about that is you've probably heard, Dave and I were talking about this earlier, how pigs are very similar to humans. And in fact, it's not uncommon for a pig liver to be used when somebody's waiting for a liver. They found they can take that pig liver, wash it with the detergent, spray it with your T cells, and it will be your liver, and they can put it in your body, no risk of rejection, anything like that. So organ transplant is going to get really good really soon. Now, the one interesting thing about that is there's I don't know if you ever heard of a science fiction author named Larry Niven.
Yeah.
So he wrote a series of books called Tales of Known Space. And there's a section in there, like a 200-year part of human history, where organ transplant essentially becomes perfect as a scientist, as a science. And what happens is criminal penalties for almost every crime goes to the death penalty immediately because they need the organs. And, it's sort of this brutal period in human history where, almost anything will result in the death penalty. It's a very strange scenario. Anyway.
Well,
so,
and Doctor Who did an episode on uploading your conscience into the cloud, as it were. I mean, don't these rich people watch TV and know how bad this is going to turn out?
Yeah.
There was
a nightmare.
There's another famous computer scientist named Bill Joy, who he invented the Java programming language, for those people who know what that means. And he worked at Sun for a long time. And he wrote this open letter to the software engineering community. He said, look, we are on the cusp of people making just amazing killing machines. Like, a robot. And then if you haven't seen the state of the art of killing robots, like they deploy for security in factories and stuff like that, they're unbelievable. They definitely have robots that will roam the factory floors and will shoot something that is moving in the factory that's not supposed to be there. So
they're all those creepy canine looking ones.
Those ones are interesting. These ones, they look a little bit more like Daleks. They're on treads and roll around, but they have cameras.
Well, and Doctor Who did an episode of that too. So
the Daleks obviously are
exterminate.
Well, not the Daleks, but the robots who would exterminate. They were
Cybermen.
No. This was the one. It's in the most recent Doctor, the female who I can't remember, but there was a huge. Yes. No, that there's a warehouse and robots that are
Jodie
programmed. Yes, thank you. They're programmed to eliminate things that aren't supposed to be where they're not supposed to be. So I mean, much science fiction, man.
Yeah, well, and so
Amazon wrote that shit in their warehouse.
Bill Joy wrote this letter to all computer programmers saying, look, think about it. You guys are probably, somebody's going to ask you one day to write a wild humans exterminate loop in your code. Don't do that.
Don't do that. Oh my God. All right. So congratulations on being elected to the, well, could be congratulations as well, but being elected to the Bylaws and Convention Rules Committee with me.
Congratulations to you too.
Yeah. So you penned I'll call it an op-ed that says that one of the things that we should consider is changing the term of the LNC chair to 4 years. Is it just the chair, or is it all the offices?
So I'm open to that. I'm happy to go through it in the committee. Maybe the right thing to do. I had originally meant for it to be just the chair, and then I thought, you know what? Make it the whole executive committee, and it'll have broader support. But I'm happy with it either way. I'm willing to whatever people think. Maybe we try it with just the chair, and that's fine, because we are in the strong chair model, and so if it's just the chair, that's fine.
So I talked to a past chair, and their idea was that you can't do it until you have a professionalized chair, meaning that the chair needs to be paid to make a commitment of 4 years. I'm not opposed to that. Again, it's
the problem.
We've got to get to the point of funding that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and more than that, the problem is looking at it on the budget side of it. And as you may recall, well, actually, I don't remember if you were on the LNC, but I did actually propose working towards making the chair a paid position. This was back in 2019.
I remember the debate. Yeah.
Yeah. And the problem with it is, what are we thinking about paying them? And what is the quality of people that you're going to get for that? Just sort of false modesty aside, I was making an ass load of money in Massachusetts. I think the best gift that I was able to give the LNC, and I mentioned this in the letter, was that I didn't need the job. It wasn't part of my financial security, even though executive director for the Libertarian Party is one of the best paying jobs in Liberty.
Yeah.
But it's not a salary you're going to get rich on. And I mean, I don't want to sound like an asshole to say that.
Well, and plus living in the DC area and all that shit.
Exactly. And so
the money that you make as executive director does not go as far as, say, if we were in Wichita,
Absolutely true. And so in that context, if you think that we're going to pay the chair, whatever we pay the executive director, it's not a job. You're going to get somebody who's willing to work for that money. That's the critical thing about it.
Yeah.
And so, like the RNC chair, I think it's like $200,000. And if we're talking about something like that, I would say, okay, that makes sense. You'll get somebody quality. If you get somebody who's willing to take the job for $60,000, I don't think that you're getting the best that we have to offer. And I don't mean that to shit on everybody who's making $60,000. I'm just saying that, the high-end executives have the capacity to be making so much more than that in the real world. And but either you get somebody who's willing to donate their time, which, was like me. I was happy to come down here and work for a lot less money. But so that's my thought about it. I want to see a paid chair.
Yeah. I mean, the two things that I would bring out on that is that, one, we don't expect the chair to move to DC. They can be a chair wherever they're at.
Yep.
And two, our chairs have, unless we're expecting them to be full-time, 100% dedicated to the Libertarian Party, a salary that's a little bit lower than a full-time salary would be
right
requisite, I think. I don't have a problem with professionalizing the chair position. We're starting to make more paid positions within the Libertarian Party, the National Party. So we've got an activism director now. We're going to get a communications director. So there are changes, and I do foresee at some point we do go to a professional chair, and that's when I say, 4 years. You can get somebody to make a commitment, knowing that they're going to get some kind of stipend, being a chair for 4 years, and being able to, that would allow them to put up with that. Because I think if they're not getting paid, then it's going to be a lot easier for them to say 2 years in,
Well, nothing prevents a person from, resigning after 2 years.
Sure.
Or, something else on that thing. And maybe even doing it right before the convention and saying, I've had enough. And you guys can now vote for, the new chair, et cetera, et cetera. To that end, though, I think that that the people that we're getting now, if you look back at the last few chairs, they've been people. So the last few chairs who have been elected, they were people who had the fiscal ability to do that.
Yes.
Nick's situation is what it is. He's also raising 4 kids.
Sure.
As your fellow LNC member Valerie Sarwark often says, breed them for freedom. But
it's awesome.
It is. Valerie's awesome.
I love Valerie. She's awesome.
But that's my sort of thought about it, is that I like the idea that, essentially I don't want to wait. I don't want to wait on the 4-year thing, because I think if we make it 4 years, we'll also bring in a different caliber of candidate.
Sure.
And it really is, to me, it really is important to have that continuity. I'm not unhappy about the way things worked out or anything like that. But I certainly was expecting to be in the office longer, and I had longer range plans.
Yeah.
And a lot of what were good plans that I wanted to bring to the Libertarian Party, I'm going to be able to fulfill through People for Liberty. But it is, the best thing I can say about it is that 80% of the executive directors over the last 10 years have served less than 2 years and have had to move to Washington, D.C.
Yep.
and give up their job and their home. My Bruins season tickets. I'm just kidding. I didn't have season tickets to the Bruins.
Like, damn,
But the list is ridiculous. Ridiculous. But that sort of
a Sabres game fairly easily, though.
That's funny. My cousin,
that one too.
My cousin teaches in Buffalo at one of the two good schools. I can't remember what they are. There's two good boarding schools in Buffalo. And she goes to games pretty frequently. And she's like, yeah, it's awesome. She's like, you can always get in.
Well, so the New York State has actually allowed 10% attendance.
Oh, really?
And I think the 20th is the first game that Buffalo fans can go back in the building, although I'm not sure why they would ever go back in the building in this season. But to get in the game, it's going to be roughly about 1,000, 1,800 people allowed into the arena. You have to pay for the ticket. Well, you have to get in line. You pay for the ticket, flat rate ticket. Not only that, but you have to take a COVID test at $65.
Wow.
So on top of the ticket, let's say a family of four,
$400.
Yeah, just to that isn't even going into the game to watch the game. That's just to get a swab stuck up your nose.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
$200.
On the other hand, if you had to get a test for some reason, going to a hockey game is not a bad way to do it.
It's not a bad way to do it, but then you got to watch the Sabres. So,
I'm not sure what it is that made me sick. It might be COVID.
It might be the Sabres.
Exactly. Yeah, but still, hockey is hockey. I've had this conversation before. I think you'll agree with me. I think hockey is actually one of the few games that is much better in person.
Oh, yes.
On television.
Yes, absolutely.
Because you get to see the play off the ice, which is the most critical element of what's off the puck, rather. And that's the most critical element of the strategy. Baseball, you need to be able to see the batter. You need to be able to, sort of see the swing and the pitch location and stuff like that. Football, you got to have that close-up view of what's happening, stuff like that. Hockey, you need that broad view. Actually, It's one of the things that I have really liked about internet coverage on Sunday Night Football. I don't know if you've ever gone to the Sunday Night package, and you can pick different camera angles.
The camera angles. Yeah,
I do like that a lot.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I love going to a hockey game. Boston.
Have you been to a Nats game yet?
No. Yes, I did. So I went actually last year. No, I went 2019. So the year they won the series.
World Series, yeah.
And what happened was Bill Redpath, who at the time was living in Virginia and is a huge sports fan, and had I mentioned Holly's about as big a Nats fan as there is. So
I'm gonna dump on your team. I'm sorry. Not on your fans, on your fan base. I'm sorry.
Dude, I will sing that Baby Shark song right now.
Oh God.
Wait, wasn't that determined to be like the reason for
That
all of
caused
our
COVID?
troubles?
It did cause COVID. It's true.
It did, yeah.
But so Redpath took me to a game like May 1st. So 2 weeks into the season. And I'll tell two stories. So first of all, it was LGBT night, but I didn't know that. So I thought that was just the Nats fan base. I'm like, wow. This is
I went to one of the games.
But then I go to see him, and he's a huge fan. And as you might remember, they started off terrible in 2019, terribly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how are these guys? He's like, they're terrible, a bunch of bums. He's like, didn't you tell me that your National League team was the Astros? I'm like, Yeah, I think I did say that to you like 8 years ago, whenever they were in the National League. It's like, so you need a National League team, so you might as well root for the Nats. I'm like, all right, I'll adopt the Nats. Yeah,
By default.
serendipity. Not a bad season for them to become my National League team. But it's funny because, of course, the Red Sox. So my grandfather came over in 1900 to the Boston area, to Lynn. And he learned English, or he supplemented his English by reading the paper and reading about the Red Sox, because, you know, the sports papers always have all this colorful language. And so he really liked, you know, sprucing up his language with things that he saw there. So he became a huge Red Sox fan, gets to see them win 5 World Series in between 1912 and 1918. And then the drought, right? The curse. We have this amazing video of him and my grandmother at their 60th anniversary in 1986, where my cousin is saying, Pa, the Red Sox going to win the pennant this year? Like, no, they got no bullpen. They got that one guy, Clemens. He's got possibilities. Of course, the rest is history. But so he died in 1996. Didn't get to see them win another World Series. But in 2004, when they win, and I'm watching, you know, and it's an amazing thing. I'm like, you know what? I'm going down to Pride of Lynn Cemetery, leave a Red Sox hat on the grave. I go down there and I get there, and the cemetery is packed. People crying, Daddy, we did it. We won the World Series. And it's like everybody's at the gravestone, stuff like that. I'm like, all right, well, now I'm a Red Sox fan for forever. And so that's my American League team. And the Red Sox, you know, a tremendous team, right? If you want a team with storied history, oldest ballpark, all that stuff, it's just an amazing thing. But then we have a World Series where my National League team, or we have ends up playing, the Astros end up playing the Red Sox in the World. It's just, yeah. Anyway.
So I got to dump on the Nats fans for a little bit, and it's not all the Nats fans, but you know, we used to get tickets to, when I lived in Arlington. We get tickets from time to time, and I don't know if you went to it. You know, I don't know if Redpath is the kind of guy that would go to the bullpen. Did you ever see that big containers, the shipping container area outside of?
Oh, yeah. No, I know exactly where it is. You walk past from the metro to the stadium.
Yeah. So it's like this party area, and it's, you know, it's fun. You get to a game in the afternoon before the game starts. You go there, have a beer and stuff. Problem is, like the yuppies that would show up to the games, they would go to this bullpen area, and they'll sit there for like 4 innings and just get hammered because the beers are slightly less expensive than inside the stadium.
Sure.
So they get hammered. And then they come and they sit behind you and they natter for the next 3 innings, not watching the game. They're talking about who's hooking up, and, you know, and then they leave in the 7th inning. Like, you guys bought tickets to this game. You could have just gone to the bullpen and sat out there and drank the rest of the night, or you could have gone to a bar and watched the game on the damn TV. But they show up for 3 innings and then they left. Now, part of it is that Metro is awful, and you know, if the game goes long, Metro just closes. They're like, screw you guys, we don't care. There's several thousand people in the stadium waiting for the game to end. They'll just close, and
right,
everyone's stranded in the city.
It's like the Warriors trying to get home with
exactly.
Very proud I got to the Warriors event in there. You know, I have to comment on the flip side of that. So I went to Minneapolis on business, and Kara Schultz will be ready to jump all over me for this, but it's the middle of summer, and this conference I'm at is like so terrible. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go see a Twins game. And it's before they built the new stadium, so they're playing in whatever the thing was.
Yeah, the Baggy Dome.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm coming from Boston, right? And so I'm like, I wonder, but it's before like tickets are really available for sale online either. So I'm like, you know what? I'll go down there, see if maybe there's something left, something standing room, something like that. I can go down there. I'm like, do you guys have any tickets? Like, we got tons of tickets. I'm like, wow, that's awesome. She's like, you can sit anywhere you want. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna sit with my people. Put me out in the bleachers. How much is that? She's like, it's $5, and you get a coupon for a free hot dog today. I'm like, that's awesome.
Score.
So, exactly. So I go out there. I'm sitting in the bleachers, and when a game is $5, it changes the economy of who's there. So there are roving packs of teenagers who, like, instead of going to the mall or something like that, they come to the baseball game and they're just roaming around. And at one point in time, like, this group sort of comes in, they sit with us, and there's other people out there, you know, families and stuff like that. And there's a balk. And everybody's like, what the hell happened? I have to explain to the entire section what a balk is. And I'm like, this is a different fan base than Boston.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But it was really cool. They had corn on a stick. Like, they dip in this giant thing of butter and they just give it to you. It's delicious.
God.
What else? And they had like all the streets around the area were closed off in a sort of an open air park / festival thing for the 800 people who were there. It was pretty cool though. I know a bunch of people who have said they have like this goal of catching one game in each stadium in the course of a calendar year. I think that would be a lot of fun.
I have the goal to do that, but not necessarily calendar year, just to eventually hit all of the major league ballparks. I mean, I've done Kansas City, I've done Denver, Atlanta, DC. When I was a baby, my dad took me to a Yankee games in old Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, my first baseball game was in Shea in 1970. So right at, well, I don't remember that much about it, but it was right after they'd won the World Series.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's just this ridiculous bullpen, right? Steve Carlton, Nolan Ryan, Tom Seaver.
Yeah.
And all I really remember about it was Mr. Met, that giant baseball head, just scared the crap out of me as a 3-year-old. I was like, oh, crying and stuff like that.
Oh, I'm from Ohio, and the Dayton Dragons, their mascot, and like there's huge dragons everywhere around that stadium. I imagine it could be rather frightening.
Yeah. Down in Cincinnati, they got Mr. Red, which is pretty much the same thing as Mr. Met, because it's a big baseball-headed thing.
National League's got particularly inventive with their
not really inventive with their
leave my hometown alone.
Well, because it used to be the Reds mascot used to be
Marge
Vladimir Lenin, the Cincinnati Reds.
I was thinking of Marge Schott, or that big old Saint Bernard that she used to have.
Right. And that's a funny thing. I'd forgotten about Marge Schott.
Yeah. You'll never forget about Marge Schott if you're from Cincinnati.
I was going to say, she's got some winners of press quotes. There's no question about it.
Oh my God.
Man, Cincinnati has some just wild characters. I'm sorry, my edible kicked in. But
hey, fantastic.
I met Jerry Springer.
I
was. Oh yeah.
Yeah, actually, I met him in Chicago, which is weird, but yeah, former mayor of Cincinnati. So tell us how you met him.
Mm-hmm. I am an opera singer, and I had a paid singing gig at a Jewish temple in Wyoming, and that's his home temple. So I sang an entire service to Jerry Springer. Isn't that ironic?
I don't think,
given my personality and his shows,
this should go onto your notes, David, because I would follow up on that Jerry Springer connection for the Frontier Project.
Absolutely, man.
Oh,
yeah.
It was like 4 years ago at this point. So, I mean, and we just met in maybe I can work that out. I know someone who knows him. Okay.
Good. Dave will follow up and then we'll get him involved in the Frontier Project.
He was a Democrat.
Yeah, no. I mean, when he ran for mayor, but a little longer. And Randy asked a good question. Are you in the Music Caucus? The Libertarian
There's a
Music
music
Caucus?
caucus?
Yes. There's
Well, it sounds like you guys got a new member.
there. Well,
Heyo!
there is a sight reading test to get in, but I'm sure you'll be able to pass it.
I'm still waiting for a piano, but
I've just made that
I
up.
need
There's no
to.
sight
I need.
reading.
Oh, really? Oh, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a little out of practice.
Oh, we need a Libertarian Party karaoke caucus.
Well, that's not a bad idea. You know, I have to shout out for Randy at Libertarian Party Happy Hour. I don't know, like 3 months ago. Randy is a
Yeah.
cellist, and he played the Bach. You know, the Yo-Yo Ma. Da, na, 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 na. It was awesome.
Oh,
It was beautiful.
nice.
Yeah.
I missed it. I had to go back and watch it on recording, but
That just cracks me up that you refer to it as the Bach Yo-Yo Ma.
I mean, that's what everybody knows it from.
yeah, no, it makes total sense. I just
Apparently,
I'm just
Yo-Yo Ma
tickled.
just played. He got his second COVID shot the other day and played for the healthcare workers. He just
That's
looked at
ballsy.
his cello and started playing for the healthcare workers. His music. So I mean, damn. Thanks, dude. That's awesome.
I've only heard really wonderful things about him.
Yeah.
I've never met him, of course, but I've met people who do, and only
If
just
you
wonderful
judge a
things.
person by their Sesame Street appearance, he's awesome.
I think that's the only performance that ever matters ever.
Yeah. So in the news this week, well, yeah, kind of everyone's Facebook feed this week and a little bit of last week, we had I'm talking about some items from last week since we didn't have the after-hour show due to the LNC meeting, but
And my
Dr.
crushing heartbreak.
Seuss Enterprises decided to stop making 6 books. All 6 had questionable, racist images or words in them.
Who? Oh, Dr. Seuss.
The Dr. Seuss books.
Right. Yeah.
So many people got mad about this and started calling this cancel culture, which I'm sorry, when a private company decides to not produce and granted, all 6 of these books, there was only one that I had ever heard of.
Yeah. Mulberry Street.
The Mulberry Street book. All the other ones I'd never heard of. And basically all this company did was make a really good market for these 6 books that are still out there. And they're going to sell out that inventory, and then it's just going to be this, you're going to have people that freak out about cancel culture talking of, buying these books up like they're some kind of meaningful fight the man thing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Mulberry Street, it's got that little thing in it. He's got that one, the White Power Hour. That we should have known. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I missed that one. Holy shit.
Hold the phone.
I grew up reading Tintin. I don't know if you're familiar with.
Oh yeah.
So there are some of the older Tintins that are just horribly racist as well.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
And I had kind of forgotten that, and I bought the complete set for my nephews. And my sister, she's like, I don't think you remember, but that Chinese one, it's pretty terrible. All the terrible caricatures and brutal comments and stuff like that. And then there's an African one. It's the same way.
Oh yeah. The African one's like,
Tintin in
King
the
Leopold, and it was.
Yeah, exactly. But it's interesting because we have to sort of, I watched a thing the other night, and they were talking about the fact, I can't remember who it was, but it's a Scottish comedian who just really sort of dumped on England and, talked about how terrible England is, blah, 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 blah. And what has it ever done? Its history of colonialism. And this guy made the point. He said, you know what? England was the first country to say slavery is wrong. It is morally wrong. And they directed the most powerful navy in the country to stop ships at sea and free slaves on them. In fact, we had a war with them about that.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal. Their involvement in something like that. How did I get here? my edible's kicking in now too.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the Magna
Yeah, I'm
Carta
late to this party.
was in 1210, I think, because of King John, who,
Yep.
by the way, his Richard the Lionhearted lived in England for a total of 6 months because he fucking hated it.
Right.
And he wrote that too. Like, we have written word that, like, I hate this place.
Yep.
They don't have any good
That
food
sucks.
here. What the fuck?
Right? Well, he was from Normandy. Yeah. What? Yeah, David said. Or Dan said.
One of my favorite lines from any movie is Robin Hood Men in Tights, where King Richard is played by none other than Patrick Stewart. And he says, "You've been so terrible, John, that I decree that from now on your name shall be synonymous with toilet."
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
That's a wonderful movie. Mel Brooks is my jam. Blazing Saddles, favorite movie all time, hands down.
You should watch, Emily. I've been watching this recently. They have, this reaction videos on thing. There's reactions to young African Americans who've never seen it before watching Blazing Saddles. And it's fantastic.
I would love that.
It's really awesome. I can't recommend it enough. It's, I tend to go down YouTube deep dives anyway. And so I've been watching reaction videos to, so the way I started it actually was kind of funny, was a relatively long time ago, Kanye did a song where he sampled something that Paul McCartney wrote. There's a little piano piece, or Paul McCartney wrote a piano piece for it, and then it was in Kanye's song. And somebody tweeted, "I don't know who Paul McCartney is, but Kanye is about to blow up his career."
I know, I saw that.
Oh damn.
So
I grew up worshiping Paul McCartney. That's terrible.
Paul's he's an amazing melody guy. It's just unbelievable. And it's interesting too. He does. So recently he's done 2 big interviews with Howard Stern, who I think Howard is the best interviewer alive right now. He does the long form interview that nobody else can do, because nobody else gets 90 minutes uninterrupted, no commercials, to talk to somebody. And in that time, he sort of plays it. And he's become so much more mature than he was when he was younger. So he really gets into things. Like, he had, I can't remember the guy's name now, the lead singer for Coldplay, on his show.
Oh shit.
He's married to Gwyneth Paltrow.
Gwyneth Paltrow's husband.
Chris something.
That has to feel great for him.
Right.
Mr. Paltrow, yes.
Yeah. And so he asked me, he's like, let me ask you something. He's like, I want to know a little bit about your writing process. He's like, like the song Yellow. He's like, that's such a unique song. Chris, can you tell me how did you write that song? He's like, it's funny. Nobody's ever asked me that question before, but it's actually a really interesting answer. I was talking with the guys about Neil Young, and I'm like, Neil Young, he whatever he sees, he just strums and then he sings a song. He's like, look at the stars, look how they shine for you.
That's
and
really
all
good.
the things you do. And the band's like, that's awesome. We should make a song like that.
That is awesome.
And I'm just like, that's the genius of Howard Stern. So he's done 2 really good interviews with Paul McCartney. You can find them on YouTube. I think you really enjoy them, Emily.
Okay.
Paul's just, some of those melodies are unbelievable. Have you seen Yesterday yet?
The movie?
Yeah. Are you familiar with it?
No.
Oh my God. So the premise is this guy, and it's awesome. So the actor, he's British Indian, struggling musician, he's playing gigs, stuff like that. And then one day he wakes up in a world, and he's out with his girlfriend, and she's like, I bought you, who's also his manager. Or actually at the time she's only his manager, but like, she knows he's depressed. She's like, I bought you a new guitar when you come out with my friends. He's like, all right, beautiful guitar, deserves a beautiful song. He picks it up and starts strumming. Yesterday, all my troubles seems, goes through the song. At the end, they're like staring at him. They're like, "What was that?" He's like, "That's
Oh.
yesterday." They're like, "When did you write that?" He's like, "I didn't write that. John Lennon, Paul McCartney, the Beatles." Make a long story short, he's in a world where the Beatles never happened, but he knows
Yeah.
all their music.
Oh my
Now that
God.
you say that, I do recall. Oh, is that on streaming something?
It is not, and it's killing me because I haven't seen it yet. So I've watched all the clips
Oh.
on YouTube. Most of the music clips are on there. There's this one amazing one where, like, after he sort of breaks, he gets invited to the Soviet Union. And he's like, "I got a new song for you." And he breaks out Back in the USSR for them. And of course, people just go nuts. And Ed Sheeran is there. And he's like, "Oh,
Oh,
man,
yeah,
you're really
yeah,
coming along. You're coming so fast." He's like, "You know what? Let's have a contest. Let's you and me go into separate rooms for 10 minutes. And then we'll come back with whatever song we've written. And whoever's got the best song wins." And so it shows them sort of doing their process. And Ed Sheeran comes back and, this new song that we've never heard before. And it's an Ed Sheeran song. It's really good. And then he sits down, the main character, and he plays "The Long and Winding Road." And you're just like, wow, first of all, what a genius song.
Yeah.
And then, the thing about the movie is that, of course, it exposes these amazing songs to millennials who've never heard them.
Right.
And,
Well,
I heard you talking earlier about going through bands' back catalogs. That's a back catalog. I mean, I owned, like most people back in the age of cassette, the Beatles 1 and 2, all their greatest hits, 48 amazing songs. I can still sing them all to this day.
Speaking of
When I was in middle school, I had every single album, every single word to every single song memorized.
Yeah.
And I knew it gospel. It was like my religion.
speaking of cassettes, the guy that invented
I saw that just died.
passed away this last
Oh,
week.
yeah.
Dutch engineer that made him.
That's too bad because those were amazing. Emily, have you seen the Carpool Karaoke with Paul McCartney?
No.
Yeah, you got to find that. That's amazing. They go back to Liverpool and James drives them around Liverpool. I don't want to ruin it for you. It's just,
I'm writing it down so I remember.
yeah, I guarantee you will be laughing and have tears of joy in your eyes at the end. It's unbelievable.
The movie Across the Universe, I'm a huge fan of satire of any sort. And it took me years to be able to watch that movie because I was like a Beatles purist.
No, I know you.
Calm down. So because I've never really heard a cover that that it's done any justice.
Yeah.
Until that movie. That movie is amazing.
So, it's interesting. I think some of the Joe Cocker covers, "Well, what do you think?"
Yes, Ringo's kind of different because Ringo wrote that song.
Right.
So,
So, "Would you stand up and walk out on me?" Sorry.
it's a good song.
Yeah, but I hear you. There's not a lot of things that I think should be appropriately that should be covered.
But what I started to say and got distracted. No, I was totally. It's holding a thought is kind of tough right now. The Lady Liberty, when they were in the throes of the Vietnam War, and they start the song "She's So Heavy," while the soldiers are carrying the Statue of Liberty on their backs.
Yeah.
It was gorgeous, just such a beautiful treatment of the topic. I thought it was very classy and powerful.
I agree with you 100%. In that thing you said, Lady Liberty, I have been thinking for a while, we're going to talk about, I'm moving from the genius of Paul McCartney to the cheesy of the Bangles. But are you familiar with the song Eternal Flame?
Yeah.
I love that song. I'm not embarrassed to admit it.
It's amazing.
That we should rewrite it with Liberty lyrics. That's
cheesy, and I love it.
Eternal flame. Exactly. and there's all also
Aw.
stuff. I might have written a stanza or two about this already, but
I love that.
yeah, next convention we'll have the band. Maybe we'll do it at the 50th birthday party. You guys going to the 50th birthday
I
party?
am going to 50th. Yes.
Oh,
All
my
right.
job sucks and I can't go.
I am going. I don't think the official dates have been announced yet. Officially.
Yeah, it's the end of. Well, they haven't.
Yeah.
officially, but
Don't
it's
announce it yet.
End of August.
Right. Not that I know. Because, but yeah, I am really looking forward to that. And I think there's going to be, I mean, I know there's going to be karaoke, but
Yes.
I'm hoping there's going to be a stage with a band as well with, some good stuff. And
I want to sing for it.
that would be awesome.
Ah!
So, you mentioned, so are you an alto, Emily? You a
Well,
soprano?
I'm okay. I'm
Contralto?
lyrico spinto soprano. So
Okay.
I said that it's for musicians. The way I said that might.
Yeah. Well, that's fine.
Anyway.
I'm pretty sure Randy's the only person watching, so I'm just kidding.
I have no idea.
Right. It's weird because I can't see the numbers of how many people are watching.
I've got 3, but that doesn't tell me what's on.
Oh,
Right.
and it's us.
No, we don't count.
No, we don't count. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So Twitch and Twitter don't pop up.
Yeah, you can't tell which ones are which. But no, that's good because I mean, obviously, an opera singer, you're not a casual musician. That's
No.
trained.
Yeah, I'm not successful. I've sang professionally with the Dayton Opera Chorus, but I'm very mediocre.
Well, so I doubt that that's true because the thing about it is that the market for professional musicians, and I've always been aware of this. So I was you guys have seen my album cover photo, right?
No.
So I was the lead singer in a rock band. And let me grab the album cover just so I can show it to you guys.
What
I
year
love
was it?
that so much.
This was in 19 here it is. Oops. You're gonna freak out when you see this.
Wow.
That's 1987.
Damn.
Those are some good years. I got a tremendous amount of play during those years.
I am so shocked.
Yep.
Not shocked.
But so one of the things is, so I was in Austin. That's where I did my first undergrad. Everybody in Austin is required to be in a garage band. Let me stop sharing my screen. Sorry. Everybody in Austin is required to be in a garage band at some point in time. And so we played around, and, our lead guitar player was phenomenally talented. He went on, and he actually is a working musician in Austin. But one of the things that I became aware of is that there are so many talented musicians out there that it's not just talent. The most talented people don't necessarily make it. And the unbelievably talented people aren't talented enough to get there, because at the very top level, so I have a friend, he's probably not watching, Charles Weatherby. Hey, Chaz, what's up? So he was first violin for the Columbus Symphony. Columbus Symphony is not a joke. That is
No.
Yeah, that's a big thing. But, at one point in time, we talked about it. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, what do you think about, Columbus? And he's like, I'm grateful. It's an amazing job. But, there's a point in time which everybody thinks, oh, I'm going to be the next Itzhak Perlman or something like that. And there are so many musicians who are just unbelievably talented. You wouldn't believe how good they are. They are the best musician that everybody they ever met in their life ever saw in person. But there's always somebody better. And he made this interesting thing about it. He said, Dan, I've come to the conclusion that the only thing you can ever say you are the best person in the world at is if you win the 100-yard dash at the Olympics, because that's broad enough. And it's not that. And he's like, and even that, you could be incredibly fast, but if you didn't have the great training that's involved with the great sprinters now, you probably couldn't beat a great sprinter, even if you were potentially faster. If Usain Bolt had all this thing, but for musicians, it's so incredibly competitive that, what's involved. And then he said, that's the other thing about it is that, I practice 8 hours a day. I have to have all this muscle memory, stuff like that. You learn all the pieces, everything else. And, having a family and all that other stuff, it's not conducive to the life I wanted. So this is where free market becomes awesome. His wife, who's a professional photographer, the two of them moved to Aspen, Colorado, and opened up a arts camp. And so now they are living in the arts economy. He's teaching just all sorts of like any kind of music that you want. Chaz can teach it because obviously, your first chair violin, you can also play guitar and piano and everything
That's
else.
a very famous camp they run among musicians, isn't
Really?
it?
I don't know.
There are some very famous summer programs across the country, and for some reason, I think it's because it was the only one I ever considered doing. Is called Brevard, but that's in South Carolina, I think.
Yes.
But there's a very famous music camp in Aspen. The name I'm just drawing a blank.
So he's also now affiliated with University of Colorado in Boulder. He plays in his quartet, the Carpe Diem Quartet, which is pretty good. And I have all of their albums. And what is the name of their camp in Aspen? I'll find it.
To your point, it's something I've been dealing with recently is my decision to whether or not I'm going to keep pursuing my career. I'm turning 36 on the 18th, and my shelf life is limited. I have a hearing disorder, central auditory processing disorder, and I've just finally had to accept that I can't be at the level that I need to be. Wow, I just opened up to the entire internet.
Oh, but this is a safe space. That's good for that. I will tell you that I heard some other things in there. Yeah, Randy, they did found the Aspen Music Festival.
Oh, yeah.
So the first thing I heard, you said 36. I think eligible to run for president. So be prepared for that.
No thanks. I ran Kim's campaign, and we're going to talk about that on the 28th. To this day, we joke about her cavernous vagina because someone talked about her just because she was a woman in politics, heaven fucking bid.
Insane.
Yes, I say, old chap, there's a talking vagina on TV. No, but yeah, and he misspelled the word cavernous,
Right?
Which just is so wonderful.
Yeah.
So yeah, just today we were joking about her cavernous vagina.
I can't wait for that discussion on the 28th. Sadly, we'll still be on the ban from Facebook, but Dan has graciously allowed us to broadcast over People for Liberty that night. So,
oh,
yeah.
Yep. Yeah, no, welcome.
Well, thanks.
That's actually what People for Liberty is meant to be. Is, we want it to be an incubator. We want you to come put your stuff in front of our audience because that's what we're doing. I said this all the time. We are building customer lists. Okay. You're the salesman. You're the salesman for Liberty. Yeah. So you come and sell your wares to our customer list. And then hopefully, after a month, you go back to your show and a lot of our customers will go with you because we're not losing them.
Yeah.
No, right. Mention what we've got as well. So that's 1/3 of the idea of People for Liberty.
That's
Pardon me, gentlemen. I have to put out my dog, but I'll still be listening.
No, that's all right. We're still here. All right. Tell me a joke, Dave.
Buffalo Sabres hockey.
Yeah. That's not bad.
Yeah.
All right.
So let's talk about more bylaw stuff.
Okay.
The idea of getting off of nominating our presidential candidate on the year of the election, going back to nominating in the fall prior to the election.
Yeah. That I'm not such a huge fan of because you want to catch fire in a bottle. Okay. And like, I think about, we could say whatever we want about the 2016 ticket. They were dominatingly the most successful. And they caught fire in the hot media cycle. I don't think that happens if we don't have our convention during that time frame, right? C-SPAN, because in that cycle, everybody's looking for a presidential story to cover. And we want to have one. And the convention is a big part of that.
So I'm not proposing to get rid of, either a Memorial Day weekend or July 4th weekend, big convention where we get together and we do actually candidate training and things like that, headlined by our presidential ticket that is underway, has all of their logos and branding, who have been following around the presidential campaigns as they go through, Iowa, New Hampshire, getting pressed that way by being kind of a thorn in their side as they tear each other apart. And then we get to, May or July, we have our big convention, which is a big media event where they give a big speech, and we're not fighting each other.
Right.
And I think that, because I look back at 1980 where we picked the ticket in 79, and then we had Showcase 80 or something. I can't remember what they called it back then, but it was a weekend where everyone got together. It was, training, training activists and things like that, affiliate training, whatever you need. And then you have these big events where you have your president and vice presidential candidate giving speeches and inviting C-SPAN to that for time certain events that they're able to cover and put on C-SPAN.
Right. So I think I appreciate that idea. Are you saying, though, I mean, if we did it like that, why do it at a convention, right? I mean, we could just do an electronic ballot to nominate the president.
I'm not opposed to doing, instead of having a convention where you have a bunch of delegates making that choice, that, Libertarian Party members get some kind of blockchain voting app that they can submit a ballot on.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't even have to be blockchain. We can do it that way if we want to, but whatever. Electronic voting can be done securely. That's easy cheesy. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's because I'm old and a traditionalist, but I like the convention. I like the presidential candidate being there, them all on the floor, reaching out to the body. I mean, 2016, I think was, it's the only one that I really remember, because obviously 2020, but 2016, everybody's got the suites. There's all the lobbying. I remember going to Austin Peterson's suite, and Austin and I had known each other in a weird way. So 2016, I'm not particularly involved in national libertarian politics, but I had somebody on Gary's team knew me and had heard me speak a couple times and said, we need somebody to represent Gary Johnson at the Maine convention and at the New Hampshire convention. Can you do that? I'm like, okay, I'm happy to do that. So I went up there, and so Austin and I were just, kind of hanging out because he was there in person, asking for delegates, and we got to know each other. Nice guy in person. I mean, I don't really know much about him, and part of being a good presidential candidate is that everybody should come away with the impression you're a nice guy.
Yeah.
But we hung out, and then when we were in Orlando, we went into the suite, and I had the Massachusetts delegation with me, and he made them feel like rock stars. He's like, you guys, Dan, and me too, butter me up. It's like, oh, Dan recommends you guys, and I know you're great, blah, 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 all that sort of thing. Everything about it, that in-person conventioneering, was just amazing. But Gary had the same thing. It was the first time I'd met Apollo. He was helping Gary win the convention.
Yeah.
And so, they had these open rooms where we could come and everybody could come and chat with Gary and all that stuff. And then, of course, what was weird about it was, I had known Bill well before he got the nomination, before there's any talk of him coming into it. He had sent me a letter after my 2012 campaign saying, Dan, you were the best candidate. I would have voted for you. And then we sort of, I wouldn't say that we were social friends, but, we exchanged emails every now and then, stuff like that. And then, of course, he gets the nomination and there's that part of it. But that whole thing about it, I really liked that. That seemed like a magical convention to me. Even the thing that was the worst led to something that was the best, right? James Weeks gets on stage, all that sort of stuff. And then the next day, Nick's on television and they say, for the people who didn't see it, they say, so, here's a man stripping at your convention. Why should anybody take the Libertarian Party seriously? And Nick says, well, at our convention, a man got up on stage and made an ass out of himself. But because, we support freedom of speech, we didn't stop him from speaking. And because we practice the non-aggression principle, we didn't use violence against him. The convention voted to remove him. And that was what happened. So up at our convention, a man got up on stage and made an ass out of himself and was removed. In Cleveland, the Republicans are going to have a man get up on stage and make an ass out of himself, and they're going to nominate him for president. And that's just, exactly. Yeah. Nice job, Nick.
Yes. Nick has always been just very, well, at least he's very memorable in his classiness.
Yeah.
What I should say, given high.
He is the king of snark.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
When it's on your side, it's delicious. And when it's against you, it's like the worst burn ever.
Yeah.
I would assume. I've never been on the wrong side of anything but friendly snark. But, it's funny because I see the stuff that he's doing now with the Libertarian Policy Institute, and we have plugged that just a little bit, the LPI. That's really important work.
Yeah.
Writing legislation that can be passed is a really important place for it to be. And it's important that it's happening from an organization that isn't necessarily affiliated with the party, because candidates need stuff that can be maybe against some of the official party positions, but are important for compromise for government.
Yeah.
The highest ranking elected Libertarian official, Jeff Hewitt, is also a member of the LNC. There are times that he has voted for things that people would say, well, that's not a very libertarian position. But, he said, look, Dan, I compromise on some things. There are some things that I tell somebody I will vote for their position in return for which I'm going to get their vote on a very libertarian position otherwise. Like, that's how government is getting done right now.
Sure.
I respect that.
And in the past, we've had issues where there's the guy that switched parties, became a libertarian in Nevada, where he voted for the football stadium. Yeah, that's a little egregious, but
we've unquestionably been conned. There's no question about it. There's the district attorney in New York who, I'll say I wrote the press release that the LP sent out, congratulating him on his victory, et cetera, and then proposes this really harsh civil asset forfeiture thing that's just bullshit.
Yeah.
So, but finding a way, we're all going to agree civil asset forfeiture is always terrible. Yeah. But there's some things that, some libertarians are going to say, you know what? I don't need to see public schools end today. I can wait for that in return for getting some leniency on, vaping.
I've always said that you're never going to turn the ship of state around completely in a day. You have to start somewhere. You have to start tugging on the wheel a little bit. Like in West Virginia, people talk about we should end public schooling. That's written into the state constitution. we can guaranteed public schooling in our state constitution. So unless you're wanting to do a constitutional amendment, you're not going to pass a law to get rid of it.
Right.
The best thing that we can do at this point is to try as best as we can is to give school choice and to try and make whatever's going on right now work. That's how we can serve our community. We can't, the people that get up in there and they say that, oh well, when my first day in office, I'm going to shut down the government. There's no button to government. Please tell me where it is. I can push it and turn it off because there is no button to government. When people say, "Oh yeah, the government's going to shut down," oh, this is going to be great. The government shutdowns are the dumbest thing that can happen because one, we don't shut down. Government still functions.
Right.
Two, it screws up a lot of things where we end up spending a whole lot more money than if we just kept the government running. There are ways to do this that are the right way to do it and not becoming the dictator that we pretend that we're against. If you're saying we're going to shut down the government tomorrow and all these programs, you're going to have to do that by being a dictator.
Exactly. How do you do that without being a tyrant? You're 100% right. Now, I will argue the way that you do it without being a tyrant is to say, okay, I'm not shutting down any programs, but I'm also not taking money from people by force anymore. So how do you fund it? We can find a way to fund it. People say volunteer, stuff like that. But, and that's sort of that's my compromise on that issue. I had a conversation with Daryl Perry, who, Daryl Perry is a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
I have enjoyed every conversation that I've had with him. But we had one conversation where I said, Daryl, sometimes I feel like your opposition to some of the things that I'm proposing, as a hardcore anarchist, member of the Libertarian Party Radical Caucus, is just, principled and not realistic. If I came up with a plan that would reduce the size of government by 50% every year, would you support that? He said, no, because you'd never get to zero government. I can't argue with your math, but, it's
letting the great be the enemy of the good.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it's not even great though, because if it doesn't work.
Right. But so the thing is that fortunately, in reality, we're never going to get in a situation where we're going to have such a vast majority that we're going to be able to be tyrants. We're never going to be able to impact a tyranny of the majority. But what we might be able to do is to liberate people. And if we liberate our money and have it returned to us, we get what we want without being tyrants.
Sure.
And so, power to the people.
That's right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Man.
Absolutely. That's to me, learning how to compromise, learning how to work with people, learning how to sell people the idea of freedom that, are in that Democrat or Republican side, picking off those issues with those people, learning who you can compromise with that, hey, I'm going to be able to work with the Democrats on criminal justice reform and cannabis legislation and things like that. I'm going to be able to work with the Republicans on lowering taxes, lowering spending, hopefully. But identifying those people that you can work with.
Yeah. And the idea that, issues, if we have an issues-based campaign, we're going to have people who come to our issues who are not all in on our philosophy.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's the point of having a campaign like that. It's funny. I had a thing, used to be a school teacher in a past life. And one of the things that I ran on when I ran for State House in Massachusetts was to replace the pension for teachers dollar for dollar with a 401k. And I said, look, teachers' pension is bad, really bad in three ways. First of all, You ask anybody who's worked as a teacher, and they know somebody who is teaching out their pension. Okay. They've discovered 10 years into it that they hate teaching, but if they go 10 more years, they'll get the full board pension. And so they just suffer through a job that they hate for 10 years. So that's bad for them.
And kids.
It's bad for the kids who get a teacher who doesn't want to be there. And it's actually bad for the school committee because they're missing out on the opportunity to hire a teacher who would love teaching because they have to keep this spot filled by this person who has tenure. So if we just make their pension portable, replace it penny for penny, so no teacher is losing any money at all with a 401k, we solve this problem. And I say to everybody, that just makes sense.
Yeah.
Even, teachers would say to me, you know what? You're right. I know too many of my colleagues who are just cashing in their paycheck and not doing a good job because they want that pension. But the problem is that, of course, if you bring an idea like that, it does threaten some things, right? It threatens the union who, negotiates that pension, who needs the people there. And then, that the union complains and it triggers up till it gets to the higher level in the Democratic Party. And then it trickles down. We're opposed to this thing. So that's where building coalitions becomes a critical thing for us. So if we have some coalitions along the way, people we've worked with, people who want to legalize cannabis, people for criminal justice reform, we have to have those allies to sustain us when we do something that irritates the party masters along the way.
Yeah. And, if you start proving that freedom works when it comes to cannabis or comes to this or that, then you can probably bring them along on other issues when you say, hey, this worked. This is freedom. This is allowing the market to work, allowing people to make their own choices. Now let's bring it on into the economic sphere where you may feel a little less comfortable about it, but at least hear us out because we actually did something that helped you out and made it work and made people a lot freer.
Yeah. In 2016, actually 2017. So Boston has always had a tax day rally down at the Parkman Bandstand in the middle of the Common. Next time you go to Boston, make sure you walk the Common. It's really special. But it was always run by the Tea Party groups. And it was a taxation protest rally. So in 2017, Trump's in office. They're not going to do it. So they're not going to have anything. But the progressive groups want to have a resist taxation rally at Cambridge. And so Boston's one thing. Cambridge, right? Harvard Square, super Democrat. But I was invited to go speak, or the Libertarian Party of Massachusetts was invited to go. And I generally did the public appearances for them. And a lot of conservatives who were invited to go bowed out. I'm like, I'm going. We can reach these people.
Yeah.
And so I went there and I went up, with a sort of a basic tenet of, we need to stop. It was just a pure criminal justice thing saying, look, this is where we are. We know that the police are exceeding their power. Law enforcement is unreasonable right now. We're seeing unreasonable search and seizure.
It was cute.
All those things. And it really resonated with them. And I was grateful for the opportunity to speak to a crowd that isn't my core constituency, because preaching to you guys, right? I mean, we're all going to agree with each other, whatever we have to say. It's getting the opportunity to go out there. And this is another thing I say all the time. I would much rather have a political conversation with a Marxist than I would with a Republican or a Democrat, because Republicans and Democrats have no idea what the fuck their party stands for, because the party
don't say for anything.
Yeah,
Right.
Exactly. You can point to positions that they have done a 180 on in 4 years. 2016, the Democrats, 2012, the Democrats pull the filibuster for the nomination of judges. And the Republicans are like, don't do it. Don't threaten the filibuster, because if you do, you're going to regret it. It's going to come back. The filibuster is so important to democracy. And the Democrats are like, no, this is so important that we have to do it. And then, of course, in 2016, the Republicans pull the filibuster for Supreme Court judges. And the Democrats are like, no, no, no. When we said we have to do it right now, we didn't mean you. We
Yes.
just meant us. And the Republicans
I
are like,
mean-
well, we said it's not the most important thing. We just meant for you, not for us. But so complete 180, same thing on Syria, right? In 2012, the Republicans are the one leading the fight, telling Barack Obama not to invade Syria. And in 2016, other way around, right? It's the Democrats, the Republicans who want to go invade Syria, and it's the Democrats just saying, no, don't do it, et cetera, et cetera. So complete flip-flop on two positions at least.
Now we're bombing Syria.
Exactly. And the thing is, right, exactly. And now we're bombing Syria right now. The Republican Party and the Democratic Party are corporations. They are incorporated. You can look it up right now. Corporations are legal constructs that are meant to remove morality out of business decisions so that shareholders get the benefit. The Republican Party and Democratic Party are corporations that sell elections, and they sell them to the highest bidder. The
Yep.
candidate who can raise the most money, they're the one who gets the party, and then they get the party services to win the election.
Yep.
And so we shouldn't be surprised that they have no principles. The only principle is win the election.
When I was when people talk to me about Bernie Bros, I find they're actually the easiest people to talk to
100% agree.
because I tell people Bernie Bros identify all the bad shit that's going on in this country. Our job is to explain to them that why the hair of the dog is not going to solve those issues, because that's what they're calling for, is more government to alleviate these issues, when government really is the cause of a lot of them. And so our job is to say, it doesn't make sense to put more government into it. Let's get the government separated and like on Wall Street, get the government out of this stuff.
Yep.
It's far easier for somebody to buy a politician and get money sent to their corporation than to play money in the stock market nowadays.
And to bring that back to full circle, that's consent culture.
Yeah.
Okay. Because the only people who can violate your consent, who can do things to you without your consent, is the government. And that's wrong.
Yeah.
And the problem is that when we give the government permission to violate your consent, we are tacitly giving other people permission to violate your consent. And that's where it just starts to go straight to hell.
Yep.
I mean, I grew up, I talked about being at the University of Texas. I saw the worst of the Greek system. Frat parties that were specifically designed to get women drunk, so that, there would be no affirmative consent. It's terrible.
Side note, the guy who raped me in 2016 was Air Force.
Yeah.
It's exactly that sort of thing, is that we have this training along the way, if you believe in the government system, that if your cause is important enough to you, you get permission to do it. And it's not hard for some people to translate that into doing really terrible things.
Mhm.
And
Especially if you're governor of New York.
exactly. Well, but that's exactly it. And people are like, well, what he did isn't that bad. It is that bad. The fact that, he hasn't escalated, and we don't know or not whether or not he actually had escalated. It's been worse than what's reported, etc. But what's reported is violating somebody's consent. And it's not unreasonable for us to say, you know what? We can't compromise on this. We have to have complete consent culture.
Yeah.
And it has
Informed consent.
exactly. That's exactly it. And that sort of thing is not something that we should ever compromise on.
No.
Not for taxation, not for the draft. We talk about this all the time. I think, one of the things that I didn't get to do, but I wanted to have a big campaign on, now's the time to end the draft. Because right now, conscription is still legal.
Yep.
Right? The president could have started it up with an executive order. And right now, that's the worst violation of liberty that's happened. I don't think you guys are old enough to have been alive during a draft, but I was. Okay.
Right.
And the fact that boys were taken out of their homes against their will and sent to Vietnam, It's
They
insane.
were literally murdered.
It's insane. And that sort of just abuse, and the fact that the government did it because, I mean, think about what was the justification for the Vietnam War anyway.
Yeah.
It's
It
just,
was built on a lie to begin with.
yeah, it's just
Mhm.
insane. And I don't know. And you know, it's funny. I was watching, you know, knock on wood, we're coming to the end of COVID. You know, at least,
Mm.
yeah, things are hopefully turning.
Yeah.
It's been a year. You know, I posted that thing on Facebook today. A year ago, a speech I gave at the Libertarian Party of Virginia, where, you know, I said, wear your mask. Libertarians are too important to die right now because we need you. So blah, 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 blah. And I think about, you know, the fact that it's been a year, but then recently I've been watching on Netflix the history of World War II in color. So they colorized all the old war
Yeah.
footage. England and Germany are at war for 6 years. Unbelievable. Rationing, right? The Blitz, all this stuff, just unbelievable. Leningrad is under siege for 2 years.
Yep.
Mhm.
500,000 people die of starvation in the first winter in Leningrad. It's just unbelievable. And so, in the grand scheme of things, I've been thinking about it, in fact, and then I've been bitching about COVID, how I have to stay home and watch Netflix. And maybe I'm being a little unreasonable.
Yeah. I mean, I'm ready to get out there and go watch sporting events, go to a concert, have fun.
Yeah.
I don't want to risk my life to do it. I'm going to get the vaccine when I can.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully I can do it through work here pretty soon. But you know, I'm ready to get out there.
I don't trust medicine enough. Like, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I'm not by a long stretch. But I feel that this is too new. I am not a doctor, and my closest ties to working in the healthcare field was when I was working at Kaiser Permanente Center for Health Research. Awesome job. But you have to question science. It's not science if it isn't questioned.
Sure.
100% true.
And this hasn't been questioned enough.
So, so the Moderna vaccine, the mRNA, that science has been around for a long time. And in fact,
Yes.
it's just a formula. So the Moderna vaccine was actually ready January 12th of 2020. They took the virus in, ran through the formula. They came out with the thing that creates the antibodies. Then they had to go through a year of testing.
Yeah.
But my feeling about it, I'm not trying to convince you into this at all, is that
Two sides are important.
yeah, it's not new science. They didn't make anything up here. They just made a vaccine using the tools that they had built not long ago, but years ago.
But
And
and
so-
if you're nervous about doing that one, the Johnson and Johnson one is old technology. That's the old stuff, the old school.
Yeah. I'll have to admit now, I haven't done enough research.
That's all good.
This is mostly a knee-jerk reaction.
Well, I will say
But
the one thing there is talk, and not I don't know anything about your personal life, but I know people who they are saying that I'm not done having children yet, and so I don't want to take that risk.
that's among what I've heard, and that's the situation I'm in. Like, want kids,
Right.
I
will say though that a lot of that I think is based on misunderstanding. mRNA is not DNA. DNA is
Oh,
what's
yes.
controlled. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so
yeah.
it is, it is when people shouldn't get it unless they feel safe, and they should do that thing about it. Do the research, all that stuff.
Here's my perspective, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
is because it's completely different. I was, I discovered that I have celiac disease in 2012.
Yep.
Now, celiac disease traditionally has been an infant wasting disease. Most people who have celiac are very skinny if they survive. And so doctors would laugh, basically saying, no, ha, 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 you can't possibly have that. You've misdiagnosed yourself. But then when they do tests, the cilia in the intestine, small intestine lining is damaged. Now, that being said, there's something like 65% of that, the test comes back, the blood test anyway, it comes back with a false negative. That's, the higher estimates. So it's not that I don't trust medicine, it's that medicine needs to evolve. And there are some things that react differently in some bodies than others. And I have a different body, so.
I agree with you on that 100%. I used to work at Massachusetts General Hospital, which sometimes is called MGH, and the employees would say stands for Man's Greatest Hospital. I have to tell a quick aside here. So I worked at Mass General when we had the terrorist attack in Boston at the Marathon. And a lot of the students that I worked with, I worked at an academic affiliate called the Institute of Health Professions, were at the medical tent at the end of the marathon, because a lot of people get to the end of the marathon and need medical attention immediately. And the first bomb goes off and they all start running towards it just right away, because they're healthcare
professionals do, yes.
And that's what they do. And you see some of the students run into the sporting goods store that's right there and grab stuff off and start making tourniquets, tying things off. 187 people are wounded in the terrorist attack. Everybody who made it to a hospital survived. And it is considered you can't say gold standard. It is the singular achievement in trauma medicine. And the reason why it happened is because Mass General has always said, we're going to be the best hospital ever. And so we paid a terrible cost in blood and treasure in Iraq and Afghanistan. And the only good thing that came out of it was that we learned so much about trauma medicine and combat medicine. And Mass General said, we have all these surgeons who are returning from war. We should always have one in the hospital any day, anytime. And so when that first bomb went off, and so a little thing about Mass General too, they said they want to be the best hospital in the world. One of their rules is that no patient should ever wait more than 5 minutes in the emergency room. So the doctor in charge of the emergency room is incredibly senior. And if wait times go up, he has the ability to order any doctor. You can be a Nobel Prize winner. If the wait line is in the emergency room too long, you'll be ordered down there and you'll see patients. So the first bomb goes off at 3:07. He gets on the PA system and he says, everybody who's leaving the hospital right now, because he's a senior doctor, he can broadcast to the whole hospital. He's got a code. Everybody who's leaving right now, we need you to return to your station right now. There's been a terrorist attack and we need the staffing. So immediately the hospital is double staffed. Mm-hmm. Then they have the combat surgeons come in there. And so as people come in, one of the things that they learned is that what it used to be is you would look at the patient and say, okay, he's the worst. He goes first. He's the next worst. He goes second. But now what they do is they say, this guy, we can work on him for 10 minutes and then we can put him aside for 8 hours. So that increases their capacity enormously.
Yeah.
The other thing about it is that, I say Mass General is the best, but there are 4 excellent hospitals in Boston. And they had an incredible coordination for what would happen in a mass casualty event. So as soon as the bomb went off, there was a person who was there saying, okay, these patients go where? Immediately. There was one spot that every patient was taken to. And from there, they were triaged and sent to the right place. So everybody who made it to a hospital, 184 people survived.
Wow.
Some terrible injuries, missing limbs and stuff like that. But Unbelievable. And you contrast that with what happened 6 months later when they had the big attack in Paris, where at the Rock Center and the terrorists went in and shot people and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And Paris is not a backwater city, but they had no idea how to handle it. People died in the streets because they were overwhelmed. They didn't have the planning. And I think about that. And I don't remember where I'd started with this about Mass General and hospital treatments.
We were talking about science evolving and
right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so that part of it, medicine is still more art than science. And it's unfortunate. And I want to see it become more science. But you see a lot of the other disciplines like industrial science coming into medicine and studying process. And that is making us better. The the communication revolution is going to make a huge difference too, as we get more into simulations, stuff like that. But you're right. There is still a lot of art in science. And, so eventually you notice I have this chronic cough. I smoked cigarettes for, a pack a day for 15 years. Kids don't smoke. But I went through a lot of bad treatments to try to fix me before one day when I was working in the hospital, a woman who, she had to use my software and she hated it. She would cry in my office and complain. But one day she heard my cough and she came running up and she grabbed me by the arm. She said, "That is a complicated cough. You need to go see somebody at the general. You need to go see Walter." And so even though I had been to 4 doctors over 7 years, none of them had really been able to help me. This guy is the head of pulmonary at Mass General. And he's like, "Well, you wouldn't be here, except that Cindy, wrote me this thing, which means you've been through a lot of things." And he says, "But I'll tell you this, if you can be a good patient, I can be a good doctor for you." And he's like, "I need you to do these things. I need you to keep a journal. I need you to write down all the stuff that's happening, all these things." We work together. The one thing that I didn't do was get thin, which would have helped a lot too. But I'm not the only
And even that is difficult. I mean, it's not as easy as the diet industry makes it sound. Believe me, I try.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm there right now. There are times that I just loathe myself. I really hate myself. And it all has to do with weight and my inability to not I know that if I could just stop eating after 7 o'clock at night, I'd be doing so much better. But there's something about it that before I go to bed, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to go in and I'm just going to get a glass of water and I'm going to have 1 cracker and that's it. And then, the next thing I know, I'm like, well, look, I just made quesadillas. How did that happen? And so
I'm there with you, man.
My favorite caucus by a mile is the LP Get Fit caucus. Yeah. And Ken Molman, Ken, I hope you're watching. Holy shit. Right?
That dude is, he was a beefy dude when he came to the convention.
He was right. And he actually had started losing weight before then. Yeah. So, he was big. He is down 100 pounds.
Yeah. He's under 200 pounds. And he looks because he's on the happy hour every week. And he looks amazing. Holy shit. So yeah, he definitely is an inspiration.
And so that's the thing I keep telling myself. In spite of my disgust with myself over so many things, I can't give up. I just can't give up because that's the end, right? Yep. So and what I have to do is I have to lean more on people because I do that. I think about that all the time. I will never let a friend down. But if it's just me, fuck it, who cares? And that excuse has to stop. So what I have to do is I have to get my friends to help me to be better about losing weight.
Right here, man.
All right.
I can't tell you.
I need to do it as well. I'm gaining weight from where I gotten low after, stopping drinking alcohol for like 6 months, I got really, I lost like 50 pounds,
Yep.
and I'm gaining a little bit. So I'm like, I need to get my shit together.
I hear you. What were you going to say, Emily?
Oh, I am so grateful for my friends, Dave among them. I've been going through a real tough time this past month, going through a rough breakup for me. And it's why I'm high right now.
Well, I will tell
Coping.
you an inspirational breakup story. So, my last girlfriend was like, I knew that we were wrong for each other from the very beginning. So she was my boss.
Oh.
Yeah. And the very first day I met her, I said to myself, she said something along the way. We had some conversation. I'm like, you need to be very careful because this woman is beautiful. She had been a model, not like a supermodel or anything like that, but like selling furniture on television and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But she was beautiful. But like in conversation, it was apparent to me immediately that we were incompatible. And I said to myself, do not get involved with this. Do not. So we get involved. And it's we get involved. We move in together.
This is more than involved.
Yeah, exactly. And we like a year before we break up, like I start to see the signs that things are going wrong. And so I do everything I can to make it work. Everything I can to keep us together. And as much as the heartbreak, part of it was too that I couldn't save the relationship. I just couldn't save it. And my heart was so broken and I just felt so miserable. And at the bottom of that, I thought to myself, this is your capacity for emotion. And the depth of the sorrow that you feel right now is an indication of the depth of happiness that you can feel.
Oh, I need to turn off my camera.
Well, so you're going to definitely want to turn off after this one, because the thing that I said to myself at the time, at this time, I was sort of like getting into a weightlifting a little bit. And I'd heard that in weightlifting, you actually break your muscles.
Yeah.
And then they grow back stronger. And I realize now that love is like that. And I am grateful to all the women who broke my heart, who made it strong enough so that now I can love my wife, who I've been married to for 20 years, the way that she deserves. So all that heartbreak has a purpose, and it will for you too, Emily.
Yes.
Thanks.
Oh, we love you, Emily.
This one sucks.
I know.
Anyway, sorry, I'm crying. I should probably just go. It's 10 o'clock. It's 11 for you.
It is late. I promised somebody I was going to call them as well. I don't know how late you normally go on this show.
No, this is kind of a free flow program, but yeah, 2 hours is generally where we get
Maudlin.
So, but again, Dan, you're one of my favorite people in the Liberty movement.
I like you too, Dave.
And I'm so happy that you came on the show tonight and we were able to have this. You had this beautiful moment right here, just giving a great lesson, and all the stuff that we talked about tonight. And Emily, thank you for joining us tonight as well. We had a great discussion. We're going from sports to music to the royal bullshit. We
Shout
didn't
out
even
to
talk about
Holly and Randy too.
Yes, Holly and Randy, thank you for joining us and making comments. We didn't even talk about the bullshit that is daylight savings time. I wanted to talk about that because it is complete bullshit. Although I think we should go to daylight savings time permanently. That's my solution.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But
started in World War I, you know.
Yeah, and we've moved past World War I.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the whole thing was built on the military-industrial complex.
Yeah.
Fuck it.
Exactly.
I will say, the next time you go to London, one of the coolest things to do is to go down the river to Greenwich to the Prime Meridian where
yeah.
the observatory is.
Oh,
Step back and forth across 0 GMT, which is pretty cool.
I think I did that when I was 16. But the World War II Museum in London is exquisite.
It is. I agree.
And it's very touching. Oops.
All right. Well,
I should go.
it's all good. Thanks everyone for joining us this week. Next week I'll be talking Second Amendment. Dan, again, thank you so much, and you are welcome back anytime you want to come talk about anything.
All right, that sounds awesome. Thanks, Dave.
We'll see everyone next week, and have a good one.
Good night.
All right.